All right, the election date has now been proclaimed, so it is quite significant when it comes to issues like, for example, the election timetable and other matters that the IEC has to deal with now going forward. We speak to the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, that is Mosotho Moepya, who is joining us this evening. And good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time. So we do have some graphics for our viewers here today, and I would perhaps like us to start with just, thinking about the significance of the election timetable that is now released following the proclamation, and what does it mean when it comes to other deadlines?
Thank you so much, Bongiwe, and thank you for the invitation. The election timetable sets out very clearly the way for November, step by step, and sequentially puts very important milestones that must be observed in our way going there. But the second thing that it does, it creates certainty. There is no guessing about when candidate nomination closes. There is no guessing about when we will know who the final candidates are in these elections, when special votes will be taking place, and so on and so forth. And that certainty is truly important for an election that must be free, that must be fair, and that must be credible.
Mm-hmm. And there's something else that we talk about here, which is the deadline of 5 p.m. right on the slide when it comes to the application, for example, of timetable activities. What does this speak to particularly?
It speaks to a very important thing. The timetable has the force of law. In other words, that timetable that we have gazetted this afternoon is as solid as what the law would provide. And every activity in that timetable will close at 5 in the afternoon, 1700 hours, so to speak. Whether it is the Electoral Commission that must comply with something on that day, whether it's a candidate or political party that must comply, that is the same effect. So whenever we talk about the cutoff time, it is 5 in the afternoon or 1700 hours.
So let's perhaps talk about this issue, because now when it comes to the election timetable and the work that's coming, there's a provisional voters roll that's now going to be made available. And while you address that, let's talk about these objections that, for example, if somebody comes and says, I've got an objection here, how do you deal with them and how do they raise them? And also, when do you then finalize all this process?
Well, you raise important issues. Tonight, everyone who wishes to be on the voters' roll for these elections must be registered by midnight. Anyone that wants their details changed or corrected must do so by midnight. On the 11th of August, that is next week, that voters' roll will lie for inspection, will be published and be available everywhere in the country at our offices for inspection. And that period of inspection will culminate in a process where anyone that feels that there are persons who are not properly registered may object against those persons. And that date of objections, objections opening, will effectively be from the 11th, from the 18th, from the 11th of August. Let me repeat, the 11th of August to the 18th of August. And the Commission will take those decisions, enabling the voters' roll to be certified by the Chief Electoral Officer shortly thereafter on the 26th of August.
I smile because the next conversation, subject is often one that at times gets very contentious, and this is around the parties and the candidate nominations. The process, I know from the conversations with the CEO, is that it is currently underway. I wonder what the uptake is like, but also for those who are still not sure what happens, let's perhaps outline this timeline then to say, how are these party lists going and how is the entire process going to unfold?
One of the key things for contestants, that is political parties and independent candidates, is that they have to submit their list of nominations effectively from today, and that process closes on the 28th of August. They must do so by submitting their lists and all the relevant documents that are required, together with a deposit that is payable together with their list. If anyone who wishes to contest these elections does not comply with this period, they are not going to be in the final list of candidates, and they will not have their names on the ballot paper. That process we have opened unofficially, but with publicity, from the 21st of June. In other words, our online candidate nomination system has been open for this process. We continue to publicize it. It remains open and will close at 1700 hours on the 28th of August. That is a long period for candidates and parties to comply. But should anyone still want to participate, the process remains open. And between now and the 26th of the 28th of August, there's 21 days. There's a long enough period. But time runs out at the beginning, not in the end. And so we want to urge everyone to enroll, those who want to enroll as candidates, to start doing so immediately.
Quickly, before I let you go, I know this issue of special votes, you and I will still talk about it in the coming weeks, but there's a critical issue of the electoral conduct that is now, also in sharp focus as well. Perhaps we end off there to just talk about its significance, especially after a proclamation and the timetable.
You know, a very important issue, and I'm sure we will talk about it some more. There will be opportunities to even demonstrate through live events what this means. But essentially, every candidate, every political party participating in an election binds itself, or bind themselves to the code of conduct prescribed in the Local Government Municipal Electoral Act and its regulations. This sets out behavior that is acceptable. It indicates what behavior would not be acceptable and how that behavior would be punishable. It is a code. Once anyone violates, anyone can take that party or candidate to the Electoral Court, or they can report those parties or candidates to us. Our role in that matter would be to investigate, to establish the facts, and should we find that there is merit in the complaint, in other words, that there is a violation that has been committed, we will then take the matter to the Electoral Court, who will then, the court has the authority to then issue a sanction on the matter. We do not have the authority to sanction anybody. Ours is to establish the facts and be satisfied that violations have happened. If we are required to take a matter to court, or citizens can themselves, parties, whoever experiences that violation, they can provide the necessary information and take that matter to the Electoral Court, and the Electoral Court deals with that matter very swiftly.
All right, so now I'm holding you to us having this conversation a little bit more deeper, this time in studio. So thank you so much for your time this evening. I appreciate it. So that's an invitation.
Wonderful. I will take your offer.
There we go. That's an invitation. It's standing. Let's see then when you can come in. That's the chairperson of the Electoral Commission. That's Mosotho Moepya. They're speaking to us about the election timetable. We'll have a lot more conversations about this, especially the critical aspect of what happens now, the voter trends and what we've seen in the past. Maswili, our specialist researcher, is on standby in the next hour to come in and take us through some of the trends.